Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GrandStand Podcast, and welcome to our very first episode of 2023 and our very first video episode for Off the Grid, I believe.
True. Very first episode in 50 years?
Yeah, I think it's our first episode in, I don't even remember how long, but you're with me, Shavin, and of course, Abhishek.
Shavin is now from a new time zone.
From a new time zone.
GrandStand has gone fully international. We just need Kavinkar to now find a new country. And yeah.
I think he's leaving in 2025, apparently. But of course, we know most of you all tune in to watch Kavinkar, but unfortunately, he's not there today.
Yeah, first video of 2023 and his face is not here. I'm so sorry about it, but maybe. Keep your fingers crossed, he might show up.
Bad start. We have a few topics that we're going to discuss today. Abhishek, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, first of all, I want to apologize to you. I mean, I'm making you go through that whole season again. I hope you forgive me. Because, Shavin... Yes, Shavin.
No, I think there's a reason why we stopped doing F1 episodes towards the end of... Because if you remember the Bahrain episode, even Saudi, Australia, there was so much enthusiasm in the episodes, but it really did decline.
Decline is a good word for what happened last season.
Yeah.
There's so many things you can describe that season with, so many words you can describe that season with. But because Shavin, wanted to start this year strong. Last year was a tough year for him, had to go through all of that with Ferrari and then had to see Messi win the World Cup as well. It's not a good time, It was very painful. It's tough when, things like that happen. But, he persevered, started the new year strong, decided he's going to be there to see Arsenal lift the Premier League after 2004. I mean, we can only see that happening right now. Arsenal winning the Premier League.
Oh my God.
I see
that's a jinx.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to comment on that.
Yeah.
I'm going to avoid talking about Arsenal till the end of the season.
They're going to win it, bro. Don't worry. But coming back to F1. So, a bit of a look at what happened last season, but also looking forward to this season as well, which promises to be another interesting season as well. We need to find out whether the teams can catch Red Bull. What a change it has been. Teams were trying to catch Merck, and now it's Red Bull. But that's what the regulation changes can do during Formula One, to Formula One. So we are going to start off, before anything else, by talking about a person who I think is special to every F1 fan, new or old. Someone who has captured their hearts and someone who has really inspired many people across the globe. And of course, we're talking about Sebastian Vettel, a legend of the sport, 4-time world champion, the third most successful driver in Formula One history in terms of wins, joined fourth with Alain Prost in terms of championships. Sorry, I'm going to let you talk first because you obviously watch Formula One more than me. I will tell how I feel about Seb, but for you being a Ferrari fan, seeing him win with Ferrari and his whole career, I'll let you talk about him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, outside of Charles Leclerc, I think Seb was like my favorite driver for quite a while, and just leaving out his driving acumen, just as a character in F1, he was such a different kind of figure. Just different to everyone else, and the way he carried himself, he was very much had like a gentleman persona in the paddock, and and his driving just amazing. I think one of the most dominant runs we've ever seen, and one of the most dominant runs we'll ever see, was his 4 years with Red Bull from 2010 to 2013. He was untouchable. So yeah, I think it's definitely a huge loss. I think we were all surprised when the way he sort of announced it coming on Instagram and just posting that single video. It was
unbelievable.
So unexpected. I guess some people wish that maybe this is just for a few years and maybe he comes back, or maybe
with Audi.
Or maybe he tries rally. Seems like he wants to try rally as well. So I think it for him, he said that it was the right time that he wanted to leave, but it's going to be such a huge loss leaving aside his driving, I think just that his persona and his character in the paddock it's going to be a huge loss, and obviously very very sad to see him retire.
Yeah, true. And for me personally, because as everyone knows, I started watching F1 just very recently from like with the podcast actually, because of the podcast and because Shavin wanted me to look into McLaren for the episode. But that's where I started, and because of I'm studying engineering, the whole thing. Anyway, that's a long story. But when I was starting to get to know the sport and the drivers, two drivers that I just like everyone else, obviously, two drivers that I really hooked onto were Kimi Raikkonen and Sebastian Vettel, because they're two interesting and like really great individuals. Forget about the driving side, two great champions as well. But and in the 2 years that I've got into Formula One, both of them have retired. So yeah, for me it's very sad as well, because Seb is such a classy guy and very funny guy as well. You've seen the press conferences, the funny responses for everything, and and the fact that he's like many people have spoken about it, the fact that he's very passionate about his projects right now with the environment. I think that's why he wants to step back from Formula One so that he can focus on that, because Formula One itself is going through the transition of trying to be net zero, and he wants to be more involved in that. But yeah, obviously it's going to be a massive miss in the paddock, just because of his smile and because of the enthusiasm he brings. Just like he said, everyone's a Ferrari fan, even if they say they're not. It's the same way everyone is a Sebastian Vettel fan, even if they say they're not. So I think, as everyone else has said, we can also say thank you, Seb, for what he's done to the sport. And yeah, so moving on from Sebastian Vettel, we are going to talk about the team that he became a dominant force with, and they're back to that stature with the season they've had, and that is of course Red Bull. If Brazil was not part of this calendar, I think the both of us would just say, what a season Max Verstappen. He's now going towards GOAT status. I mean, obviously he's still got a few more years to go if we can reach there, but he's well on his way towards becoming one of the greatest ever, if he's not already in that question. And Red Bull as a whole as well, just a well-oiled machine, who just know how to do everything right. But then something happened in Brazil. But before we get into that, we'll just touch a bit on Max's and Checo's season, Shavin.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, an incredible season for. Let's just talk about Max first, because incredible season for Max, winning his second title, and this time he did it, without any question marks or whatever.
No, there were question marks. He was not sure they were champion or not.
Yeah,
that was funny.
But yeah, I mean, without he didn't really leave any doubt, and it was more of one of those dominant wins by a team rather than such a tight battle by the two, like what we saw in 2021, right? Because that was such a tight race, and then there was so much controversy towards the end. But this, I think, towards the middle of the season, with the after Ferrari's couple of wins after their first few wins, they we saw all the
first 2 wins, bro. It was not a few; it was just 2.
The first few wins starting from Spain and Monaco and Baku. I'm not going to name the races, but
you can't.
I can't physically. I think for me, Spain is where it started, so that's etched into my mind, and from there onwards it was just downhill. But yeah, it was a really really dominant season for Max. I think it's the most wins by a driver in a fun season, and I mean, even though most people thought it was close between him and Charles, if you look at it statistically, it wasn't close, because he destroyed Ferrari, and he always did like what Lewis did, like what Lewis has done. He was always performing when he needed to perform. Like the car, I think Red Bull as a team definitely had the best car on the grid. They developed the car. Maybe at the start of the season, Ferrari had a better car, but Red Bull developed the car and they built on the straight line speed, and they gave Max the car that he wanted. And he was always there. Like whenever he needed to deliver, he delivered. And we also saw that maturity, because in certain races when maybe there's another car that was faster, he didn't press as much. I think maybe Austria is one such example, because I think Ferrari had the better car. But overall, I think he's really developed from last season. He's probably that pressure of winning a title is now off his shoulders, and now he has two to his name. So I can only see him getting better, and I can only see Red Bull as a team getting better. But coming back to the drama, which is between Checo and Max, I mean, I don't know what to make of it, because the starting point, as you mentioned earlier before this, was Monaco. Maybe you can give an explanation on what exactly happened.
To be honest, I couldn't even believe that it was Monaco. I mean, first of all, we have to talk about Checo a bit as well, because Checo started off really well, it has to be said. And I think the car kind of suited him more. We spoke about this quite a few times on the Off the Grid episodes. But the car was more to his suiting, and he was actually quite close to Max. I would say until Silverstone, he was, challenging Max. There were times where he was actually fast. I would say Spain. I know that Red Bull told him to step aside, but if they didn't, even though people said that Max would have won, I was not so sure, because Max was having DRS issues. So, and Checo was fast. Baku, he was fast. They told him not to challenge. Max went through. Canada was a small blip. Silverstone, he made most of Max's problem with he ran over some debris, and Max was struggling. So until then, it was Checo was pretty close, and then from that it went down. I think the cars developed more towards Max, and the best example was Spa, where he was at the start of the grid. Max was 14th, and they finished 1-2, and Max was like 14 seconds ahead of Checo in the same car. But then Checo had a blip, came back a bit, and he was he won in Singapore, and then Brazil, where it was key for him. Max had won the championship. It was that fight for P2. And whatever happened. It was just bizarre. And Martin Brundle said on the commentary, this has to do with this thing which happened. This has to do with Monaco. And I was like so confused, and I was thinking, Martin Brundle of all people, why are you saying something like that? Like, he doesn't look for drama. Why would you say something? For me, Monaco didn't even cross my mind. And he was talking about the crash. And I was like, so it was raining. Like, it was raining. Alonso crashed just a few seconds after Perez. And Alonso is like still one of the top drivers on the grid. And then, like, on Twitter, like, all this telemetry data, and the video started popping up where he was actually going on the throttle way too early, and he didn't counter steer to the spin. And I was like, what is going on? It was such a bizarre situation. And it was bizarre because Checo and Max are actually, they were pretty close. They were pretty close as friends. So it's, like you said, it is a bizarre situation. And, there was also that picture that came out that looked like they were arguing as well. But I really don't know what the situation at Red Bull. Apparently, the situation was that they just told Checo, look, if you didn't like what happened, well, sucks to be you, kind of. Sorry for that. I mean, that's because obviously no one's going to, Red Bull is not going to tell Max, what you did was wrong, because obviously he's the world champion. They're going to put their eggs in his basket. There's no question in that. Checo has been a great driver for them. I still think Max shouldn't have done it. Okay, regardless of what happened, maybe they should have dealt with it by now, because Monaco was so far back. Charles Leclerc had just lost the championship lead. He lost. Okay, he was 46 points ahead, and he lost the championship lead. Since then, Max won by 146 points. It was so far back. And if that problem was still existent, I think Red Bull failed in terms of management. Which is weird, because Christian Horner is like one of the best leaders on that in that paddock. But it was weird to see, and it's unfortunate because they seem to have a great relationship. Apparently, this sort of rifting started the weekend before in Mexico, where Checo had actually asked, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. These were things that I've read. None of this is confirmed, obviously. But Checo had actually asked for the opportunity to win his home Grand Prix, and he was about told, no, it can't happen. I don't know what it is, but clearly it's Checo who is on thin ice at the moment. It's his seat, because there's no way. Max is signed till 28. Checo is signed till only till 24. We don't know what will happen this season if he doesn't come close to Max, whether he loses his seat, because Red Bull have a plethora of talent in their ranks, with Tsunoda and Liam Lawson and all those guys. So it's a bit unfortunate what happened, because it was such a good, it seemed to be such a good relationship, and Checo has helped Max so many times. I still think, like I said, Max shouldn't have done it, because one, Checo, okay, he may have crashed, and that should have been dealt with. But Checo is the one who held up Lewis last season so that Max could close the gap down. Checo made Charles do the mistake. I mean, Max would have won the championship regardless, but Checo made Charles do the mistake to help him win the championship this season.
Yeah.
And the race before Monaco and the race after Monaco, Spain and Baku, Checo moved aside. He didn't. He was in the championship fight at that point.
Yeah.
But Checo moved aside. He said he didn't like it, but he still did it. So for someone who's done that, it left a bitter taste in everyone's mouth. But apparently they've sorted it out. Who knows what the truth is? But it was really unfortunate for sure.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think you've seen this with Red Bull, and also I think you've seen it with Merck when they're fighting for a championship. Is that they're so ruthless and they're so decisive when it comes to backing one driver.
Yeah,
which is exactly what you need, and which is exactly what Mattia Binotto couldn't do. And I think, I mean, there are so many decisions that we can talk about, but one thing that didn't come from Ferrari through leadership, I'm not saying this because I prefer the clever signs or anything like that, but
it's exactly what I'm saying.
I'm saying whichever driver they back, I think they need to back one driver, because if you're fighting in the midfield, it's a different story. Then you're just trying to score points, it's fine. But if you're fighting for a championship, you definitely have to back one driver. And it was honestly like bizarre in certain moments, like to watch the errors that Ferrari made. And
we are going to talk about Ferrari, don't worry.
Yeah, I know. But I'm just saying the decisiveness that Red Bull have, I think, is one recipe for their success. And I think, and as bad as it may look from the outside, what the way they're treating Checo, it's not the best. And you've seen like this seat is once again a seat which is it seems like it's jinxed, right? Whoever comes to this seat is in trouble. So as much as it's it doesn't seem, it leaves like a bad taste to watch what they're doing. I think it's exactly what they need, and it's why they are champions, because they're so decisive. They never think twice, and they have one mindset, that is, we are backing Max Verstappen, and Max Verstappen comes first no matter what.
Yeah.
So I think I can't really disagree with that, because they are champions. And I think that's the same thing that Mercedes did with Lewis, because they would always protect Lewis no matter what. And it's the same thing that Horner did with Seb as well, right?
With Seb as well, Weber is a veteran driver, and
exactly. So whenever, like, even Weber said, like, even when the multi-21, when it happened, Weber said, like, I knew nothing would happen to Seb because that Horner was protection. So exactly. So as bad as that might look, I think that is the kind of decisiveness that you need to kind of back one driver. And I just think, I personally think that this could be like Checo's last season, and maybe someone else comes in. I don't know whether it will like directly be someone like, I just can't see Yuki Tsunoda and Max Verstappen in one team. It just seems like a problem waiting to happen, but I guess we'll find out this season.
But it'll be interesting. But it'll be sad to see if that's the case, because, like I said, Checo and Max seem to be a good partnership. But let's move on to what I've been waiting for, and that's the Scuderia, and to see how the Scuderia screwed. No, but seriously, when Ferrari started off, they had you can say whatever you want to say. I'm not Formula One fans. You can't disagree with the fact that across a lap, Ferrari had the faster car. They had the straight line speed, Red Bull, but across a lap, 11 poles to 8. 11 poles to 8. There's the story. Across a lap, Ferrari had the fastest car.
Yeah.
And they started off well. They had no reliability issues, nothing at all, no tire degradation, nothing. Their strategy was like perfect in Melbourne. They pulled it off superbly. Yeah. And then from there, it just went down.
Yeah.
And then that has now resulted in Mattia Binotto, who has been in the team for so long, in him leaving, and now Fred Vasseur, who is... It's an interesting choice, very interesting choice for Ferrari. A good choice. Yeah. And also because of his relationship with Leclerc. Fred Vasseur leaving Alfa Romeo and coming to Ferrari. Shavin, what does this change mean for a team?
Well, I think I don't know whether it was right or wrong, but with a lot of things that happened with Ferrari, most people pointed to Mattia Binotto because obviously he was like the figurehead. And one thing I think because Ferrari made so many mistakes, right? Like it's honestly like uncountable the amount of strategic errors they made. And one thing is that his response to all of those things, even on driver radio, and when he spoke to all those things, he was like, "Oh no, there is no issue. Like these things happen," or he was just like he would just like dismiss it, right? Even
He
when
was being kind of oblivious, I would say.
yeah, exactly. And even I think I don't remember whether maybe it was Monaco, but when Leclerc complained to him, he was like, these things happen or whatever. Like, he never like owned up to the mistake, and it just seemed like he was just like dismissing whatever issue they had. And also, like I spoke before, like one thing you obviously need is a head of a team that is very decisive. And with Merck, I think it doesn't come only from Toto. Like I think it comes from guys like James Bowles, who the chief strategist, who is very decisive with the strategy. But clearly Ferrari didn't have that, and we saw in certain races. Like I personally still think, I know that Silverstone is where Carlos got his maiden win, but I think that was a terrible mess up in terms of strategy. Terrible mess up in I still like when I rewatch that race, it's bizarre to me like why they would come up with that strategy.
To be honest, I was watching that race, right, and they were showing the overhead camera when the safety car came out.
Yeah.
And I was expecting. I saw the red of Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
I saw the pit lane, and I was expecting the car to go there.
Yeah.
And when I saw the car turn left, I was like, my stream has crashed. I'm just going to reload it because I didn't picture any scenario where Leclerc didn't pit, and somehow he didn't pit, which is just anyway. Yeah, there's no point in talking about it, I feel.
Yeah, exactly. And that was just one incident. Apart from that, like obviously Monaco, the mess up in Monaco, and like so many incidents after that.
Yeah.
The double stack in Monaco and whatnot. So
Hungary was a mess up. Yeah.
Yeah, Hungary, exactly. And I think that Ferrari, I personally don't think that Matteo Binotto was a very strong team principal. I think he had based on what I've read about him, he's had a really good like engineering mind. Obviously, he's been in Ferrari for a very long time, but it just seemed like he wasn't suited to this role of managing the drivers and managing strategy the way Toto Wolff or Christian Horner is.
Or John Todd, like for Ferrari was like, he was ruthless, right?
Yeah, exactly. So and the thing about Fred Vasseur, I think the first thing is obviously his relationship with Leclerc and obviously how good he's been at Sauber. So whether he'll replicate that success and bring what Ferrari fans want, I think we'll have to find out, because one thing that we definitely know is that we can't make predictions of the upcoming season, because whatever prediction we make is going to go out of the window. So what I can say is like I think a lot of Ferrari fans are really hoping that he comes in and brings a bit of stability. And even if Ferrari don't win this season, I mean, I really hope they do win, but even if they don't win this season, it should be because of that they were beaten fairly and not because of them digging their own grave and so many like so many amateur mistakes that you wouldn't expect from a Formula One team, and week in week out making those mistakes. So if that is corrected, I think that is the biggest thing that Fred Vasseur can do. And what this means for Carlos Sainz, I don't know. Given how
no. He has given us the assurance. Both Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz will start on equal footing. Yes.
But I mean, obviously, yeah. I guess they will
just as Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez were starting on equal footing for last season. Okay.
Exactly.
And
yeah, exactly like that. So I think this is also an interesting season for Carlos, because he had an underwhelming year, I think, last year.
Very unlucky. I actually don't know who had the most bad luck, to be honest. I mean, Leclerc, I feel like Leclerc, people will say Leclerc because of the championship, but
yeah.
If you look, do you know, interesting fact, in the second half of the season, this review was done by Tomo on YouTube. And if I'm not mistaken, in the second half of the season, like first half, Charles destroys Sainz in the head-to-head for qualifying. But in the second half, Carlos actually beats Charles in the qualifying head-to-head. He actually improved drastically in the second half of the season. So he beats him in race and in head-to-head, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe Charles got fed up also. Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were talking about Sainz.
Yeah, I think he did improve. Especially, I think it's an interesting point. But his one lap, like his qualifying times, improved towards the middle and the end of the season, which is a good sign for him. But it was sort of an underwhelming season. It was unlucky for him.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I really hope that I think for Charles, I think it's something interesting to look forward to, because obviously he's working with his former team boss, and I'm sure that he must be motivated. But I hope Carlos is equally as motivated, and he brings that same energy, because we know that he's a very talented driver, and that's obviously why Ferrari signed him, and they're still a very, very interesting driver lineup to watch. So I think I am excited. Obviously, it really depends on what the car is like, and how much ahead Red Bull is, if they are ahead. But I think from a fan's perspective, it's an interesting time, because obviously it's new leadership, and I think all we can do is hope for the best, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Because just one thing I wanted to add with the whole championship, like we can say now that we're seeing the season like pan out, it was definitely that Red Bull would have won it, because at one point the car was unbeatable. Ferrari just lost pace because the development didn't go to plan, I guess, and the car became tough to drive. Not in the sense that tire degradation was a massive problem. That's why they were losing out on races. But it was just the manner in which they lost, like you said. Like those bad mistakes. Silverstone should have been a Leclerc victory. Sainz won, okay, but it should have been a Leclerc victory. Hungary, they managed to start 2 and 3 with Red Bull 10 and 11, and a Red Bull beat one Ferrari, which is inexcusable. I think for a car that was very fast. Monaco, disaster. And it's those things that, left a bad taste in fans' mouths, because, of course, Red Bull would have won it, but you could have challenged them. And it's not the first time. That's the thing. It's not the first time. You had the problem in 2010 with Alonso, 2012 with Alonso, 17 and 18 with Vettel. And then again, you think that, you would make those strides. And it seemed like that in Melbourne. They pulled out a perfect race plan with Leclerc. They were untouchable. So it is sad. Reliability issues also caused a lot of problems for them. But who knows, with Vassar, maybe he might bring some stability, like you said, might change a few things. And who knows, that Leclerc-Vassar partnership might bring success to Ferrari. I guess you can wait and see. So moving on from Ferrari to the 8-time Constructors champions and one-time unbeatable team in Formula 1. Merc, very interesting season for Merc. They started off really well. Started off pretty badly. They were fighting Haas in races. Well done to Haas, by the way. They had a brilliant season, I would say. But if you ask me, this season, more than anything else, kind of proved to me why Merc, along with Red Bull, but I still think Merc might be still a bit ahead, even though it doesn't show, why they are still the best team in Formula 1. Just the way they are run, the professionalism of that team, and just the way they operate, run and operate, the same thing, sorry. But because they didn't have a great car. The car was bad. It was porpoising, bouncing. Hamilton was having backaches. Hamilton had to take, the bulk of the workload and, put extra sensors on his car. His car was slow. Russell being the new guy, he's the one who had to get the points. That was the problem they had at the start of the season. And towards the end, at one point in Brazil, they were untouchable. Like no one. Red Bull, who have a crazy fast car, Ferrari with a pretty good car, they couldn't even catch them. They were brought back down to earth in Abu Dhabi, but just that, just the way they progress, they were going from fighting with Haas, Alpha, Bottas was out qualifying the Mercs, and everyone was making fun of them, saying, "Oh, he left Merc and now he's out qualifying them." They went from that to beating the Ferraris, to getting the best of the Red Bulls at Brazil. So just the way they got themselves out of that mess in the cost cap also. We think that they're not beats the cost cap. Just proves as to why they're a good team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is this is Merck's worst season in about 8 years or 9 years, I would say.
Years,
And even in that season, they won a race.
They won a race.
And one of their drivers came fourth, and the other driver sixth, obviously. And
he came sixth because of the DNF. I mean,
yeah,
the DNF in Abu Dhabi, others would have beaten Carlos.
Yeah,
and the reliability of the car is a tank. The only reason they had DNFs is because they crashed. What was it? Spa was one, Abu Dhabi was one, and the other DNF was for Russell in Silverstone, which was unfortunate. But
unfortunate.
Yeah.
But that was also not his fault, right? I mean, I guess.
I mean, it's never his fault. Schumacher turned into him when he was trying to make the call. But
I think once again, I mean, like you said, they are still up there. I think it's an interesting point that you mentioned, actually, because if someone asks you what's the best team in Formula One right now, people will point to Red Bull, but I think Merc is still probably the best run team in Formula One, because they recovered amazingly, and over the season. See, another thing about Merc is like how they took accountability for their car, and the way they said, no, this car is definitely not where we want to be, but we are trying to improve it. And they said, we know that we can't compete with the top teams, but they did improve, and you have to be impressed with how well George Russell drove over the course of this season, because he was driving against arguably or probably the greatest driver ever driven in Formula One, and he
statistically,
he beat him by about like 30-35 points, and by like 2 positions. So,
and he was running in for second place in the construct. I mean, in the drivers' championship. If Go and Charles DNF, he would have actually been
exactly,
which is crazy.
I think he finished only like 25 points, of like 30 points behind Charles. So I think despite this being Merck's worst season, because if you compare it with like Ferrari's worst season, which was like in 2020, I believe, like it's not even comparable. So like winning a race, it's incredible. And I think they will recover, and they will have a good season. The one loss that they're going to have is obviously the chief strategist James Vowles moving to Williams as the team principal, and I guess we will talk about this next. But I still think that they're a well-oiled machine. I think they will cope with that, and they'll do good next season.
Yeah, like you said, I think Russell deserves credit, because first season with Merck against Hamilton, phenomenal performance to get that win as well. And also Hamilton, I mean, goes to show, he showed why he still is probably along with Max. I know there's going to be arguments, but still the greatest driver on the grid, But yeah, incredible comeback from him as well, from being stuck behind Pierre Gasly's rear wing to, coming close to winning quite a few times. But Merck are a team that you shouldn't be you should be worried about if you're another team, but they shouldn't be worried, because I think they always find a way. But it might be a bit tricky, because, there's one guy who's actually been quite fundamental to their success in recent years, and that person is leaving them to go to Williams. And that is, like you said, James Vowles. The James, it's James, that guy.
Yeah.
Has this, I don't know whether it's a team decision or is it his own. I saw a few things here and there where I think WTF1 brought it up again. Another sad thing to see Tommy and Matty leaving WTF1.
Yeah.
It's just so sad. I joined F1, and I really love to watch WTF1 shows, and those were like amazing.
Absolutely.
And now they've also left, which is very sad. I think it's
apparently there is something like they said there's something exciting coming up, so I guess.
Oh yeah, maybe we might see something about it. I think it's me, because people who are popular leaving. I'm just kidding. Anyway, but the new team, I think they spoke about this, and I saw this thing. I think it was a fan theory or something, where Merck allowed this to happen so that James Vowles can go to Williams, a team that wants to come up to back to where they were. So he goes there, takes a leadership role, gets the experience, comes back in time when Toto Wolff decides, I've had my share, I've had enough success, it's time to move on.
Yeah.
And Vowles can take Mercedes from there on. I don't know what it is, I have no idea, but it is going to be a big miss for Merck, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I mentioned before, I think uh, because Merck is such a well-oiled machine, I think we've seen a good example is if you go on YouTube and just watch their masterclass in Hungary. I
Hungary. It
think
was
in Hungary,
2019.
just absolute, like, there's a masterclass in how strategy should be performed. Maybe like Binoto can go and watch that video a few
If
times,
you also want
maybe
to
three
see
times.
masterclass in strategy, and just watch Ferrari's 2022 season,
Monaco.
and then do the exact opposite. That's the key part.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, so like, and James Walls was integral to that success, because some of the key decisions that they take were taken by him, and definitely, like you said, he'll be a big miss. But it's interesting. Maybe they're gonna groom him to a team principal role, and now we can see how he runs his own team, and he has two young drivers. I guess, I mean, Alex Albon and Logan Sargent. So yeah, interesting time for Williams, but I think Merck will be fine, and I think they'll get through it.
Yeah, but now that we've come to James Walls and this whole team principal thing, we
Yeah,
had silly season for team principals, as it's called, silly season, and
yeah,
we've seen a bunch of team principals leaving and joining new teams in different capacities. I mean, the team I support,
yeah,
Andrea Seidel, I think I don't know how it's going to turn out for McLaren, but he was a great leader in that McLaren camp, but he's left them to join Sauber. But there's talks where it's all part of the Audi plan, because Audi is going to come and join Sauber in 26, and him being German brand, he might hit that department there. But we've
yeah.
seen a few. So Andreas Silla takes over from Andreas Seidel as
Seidel.
team principal there.
Yeah.
James Walls, as we said, takes over from Josh Capito at Williams. Uh, I can't remember. They just announced it today. Alfa Romeo, their new team principal, who is
Oh
replacing
yeah.
Fred Vasseur. I can't remember
Oh
who it
yeah.
was. I'm so
I don't
sorry.
remember his name as well.
Maybe
I
Shavin can
just I Yeah.
Shavin can check it up. And also, like we said, the Ferrari is getting Fred
Alessandro
Vasseur.
Bravi.
Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's caused a bit of excitement in the grid, but what do you make of it? I think the most interesting one will be McLaren, because Seidel was a great leader.
Yeah.
In that he was McLaren didn't have a great season this time around. It has to be seen. It wasn't
Yeah.
great compared to the strides they had taken in the previous season. And now Seidel leaving, what do you think that will bring to the team?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think McLaren is an interesting one, because uh, it seemed like they were taking steps forward under Andreas Seidel, and then last season seemed like a big step back under the new regulations. So it's very much like a rebuilding and sort of getting that momentum back for McLaren this season. And they have a very interesting driver pairing, which we will come to next. But yeah, I think so. Andrea Stella, obviously, like you, like you told me before, he was Fernando's race engineer at Ferrari.
Ferrari. So he
So
has all the
yeah,
experience needed to to know how to not fail.
oh, yeah, how to not,
I
and
think
also I guess how to deal with like demanding
demand
drivers. Drivers, I don't think Lando and Oscar are going to give him such a hard time, but
hard time. Yeah, probably.
yeah. But yeah, I think like it's a big boost to fill, because Andrea Seidel was doing a fantastic job. So I think for McLaren's sort of that team that everyone wants to see like coming up, because there are
Do you? Do
I
you?
mean, yeah, for personally, like I don't dislike the team. I think I like Lando, and I'm very interested to see what Oscar Piastri does as well. So yeah, hopefully Andrea Stella can get that team together, and hopefully they maybe fight for fourth and not for the title, so that Ferrari can fight for the title. But yeah, I think yeah, interesting. I mean, we'll see what happens with them.
Yeah, I think for all teams, because we spoke about Fred Vasseur for Ferrari, it's a new dawn for them.
Yeah,
Williams who have got a new invest. With Claire Williams and the Williams family selling the team
yeah,
to their new investors, like
yeah,
there's been a bit of a shake-up going on there. they are also hoping to come back to the top of the grid after having quite a few seasons in the opposite end of the spectrum. Alfa Romeo as well. They seem to be cooking up something very interesting. They had a pretty good season last year. I mean, like I said, Bottas was out qualifying Mercs. I mean, the first 9 races he was in the points in the first 7, and Shogun Yu, to be said, had a phenomenal season as well. It has to be said for a rookie. He was so unlucky with reliability issues, and so was Bottas. Because after the first 9 races where they scored points, for the remainder of the season they were out of the points. I mean, Guan Yu should scored a few points here and there. But regardless, with the Audi collaboration, they're coming in as an engine supplier. It has to be said, not as a works team yet. They're coming in as an engine supplier for this, for now. We don't know what the future holds afterwards, but Alfa Romeo also seems to be cooking up something very interesting. So this whole with this whole change of regulations, we've seen Formula One kind of changing, and it seems to be going in a completely different direction. Not a different direction, in a very interesting direction at this point. With new regulations, new teams, with the whole, which is important, very important. The whole environmental side of it. They're trying to be net zero by 2030. They're working on the fuel, which is environmental friendly. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting times in Formula One, and that brings us to the last segment of our off the grid episode for this for the season preview, and that is team driver lineups. Because we have found quite a few interesting lineups. And we're just going to try and dissect which of them might work, which of them might not. Sorry, you want to pick first?
I think I'll start with what I think, what I'm most excited to see. I think there's 2 driver lineups I'm very excited to see. Leaving out McLaren, I would say Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon. I'm very interested to see, because Gasly is a driver that I rate very highly. Even though I think last season maybe was not as great as his previous season at AlphaTauri, because I think the car also the car just wasn't there, and it just wasn't there. But I think he's a driver I rate very highly, and I think he's a very talented driver, and he's very aggressive. Like we've seen in races, he goes for it very much like like his friend Charles. But I think Esteban is also a very aggressive driver, and it's going to be very interesting to see how these two get on, given their history. Apparently they've buried the hatchet now. But I think I'm very excited to see, because if Alpine do have buried the hatchet, hopefully. But if and they are also childhood friends, right? Like these three, for anyone who doesn't know, Charles, Esteban, and Pierre Gasly have been racing in go-karting since they were 9 years old. So they know each other from a very young age. So to be on the same team like that, it's going to be very
French team, French lineup.
French team, full French lineup. And and if Alpine, last season was such a bizarre season for Alpine, because they always seem to have a good car, and then it just reliability was never there for the team. So if they can fix that, and if they do have a good car, I think I'm so interested to see how those two are going to compete against each other, and who's going to come out on top. For me, that's one driver lineup. But since you're a McLaren fan, I'm going to ask you, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, what do you think? And we're not going to do predictions, but I want you to give a prediction who gets more points.
I'll give you that. I still think Lando gets more points, because Lando has been crazy this season, hasn't he? The last season, he's been the only guy outside the top 3 to get a podium, and he took the fight to Alpine. Unfortunately for Daniel Rick, it's so sad to see him leaving the grid. But Daniel Rick just didn't have a good season, did he? But Lando Norris was just, with tonsillitis, we had flu in Monaco. He was driving with all the sicknesses in the world, or all the sicknesses in the world, but he was struggling and still putting in performances like that. And that team is built around him, there's no question. So I still think Lando gets more points. But apparently for the postseason testing in Abu Dhabi, Oscar's never driven for McLaren, by the way. He's always been for Alpine. He's Alpine's reserve driver, Alpine's academy driver, and all that. They somehow managed to butcher that up. He's driving for McLaren, but he comes to McLaren, a car that's built around Lando Norris,
Yeah.
And apparently in the timings he was just a tenth of a second off in
Yeah.
the timing.
Which is
So
crazy.
there is
Yeah.
this, which is crazy. It's not a
Yeah.
massive difference, right? For a guy who has not driven much in Formula One, I don't think he's.
Yeah.
I think he's probably tested once or twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that too with Alpine, not with McLaren. Complete two
Yeah.
different, like completely different setups, and just to
Yeah.
be a tenth off. There is some.
It's
It's going to be
incredible.
a very very interesting season for McLaren. And once again, like you
Yeah.
said with Ferrari, they probably had to make a decision as to who will get preference. I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah.
And because I mean, Mark Webber, who is Piastri's agent,
Yeah.
he's been touting this guy as the next big thing in Formula One, and
Yeah.
probably likely so. I mean, he won the F2 championship as well, but not everyone who wins F2 wins F1.
Yeah.
There's so many examples
Yeah.
for that. But
Yeah.
he seems to be, the next big thing so far. But that
Yeah.
could also bring some pressure. It's important that it doesn't go into his head, and he just shows how
Yeah.
good he is. But I'm genuinely excited because this could be something good for McLaren, maybe something they need as well. Because it's
Yeah.
a shame that the Danny Rick experiment didn't work out because a talented driver, brilliant driver. He's won 8 Grand Prix, and all 8 of his wins have come with him not having the fastest car.
Yeah.
I think McLaren would have thought they would have had something there, but they just couldn't make it work with Danny
Yeah.
Rick. So
Yeah.
hopefully this goes according to plan because they got a steal basically.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would have really said, "Oh, Piastri would be driving for McLaren if Alonso left to Aston Martin." So yeah, as a McLaren fan, I'm excited. I just hope that they don't come into blows. But Lando's been pretty professional. I mean, even the last win with the last time the 1-2 in Monza, he was asking should I go for the win or not. And when
Yeah.
the team said no,
Yeah.
stay behind, he was like, I don't like it, but okay, stay behind.
Yeah.
The same
Yeah.
with Baku this year, where he was faster, but because Danilik needed the points, he was saying, I'm fighting for points, just let him go.
Yeah.
He didn't like it, but he
Yeah.
he let it happen. You don't know what will happen if they're towards the sharp end of the challenge, fighting for
Yeah.
podiums.
Yeah.
But it is going to be very interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see how they sort that out. But
Absolutely.
the pick I'm going to talk about, I think it's going to be very interesting because it's always interesting with this guy, and that is Fernando
Yeah.
Alonso and Lance Stroll. Now, Seb is a nice guy, and Seb
Yeah.
and Lawrence Stroll are apparently great friends.
Yeah.
So when Lance does these cheeky things
Yeah.
with Seb, maybe okay, fine. I think he did a similar thing in the US just before he did that crazy thing with Fernando, where he moved
Yeah.
across, late.
Yeah.
He just said, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
But Fernando is, the teammate's bane. Every
Yeah.
teammate he's had has ended up in how Alonso and Ocon were like BFFs last season.
Yeah.
And now it's gone down the drain. Ocon's
Yeah.
like, thank goodness he left. It was
Yeah.
too much pressure and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So Alonso is going to a team where his teammate is the son of the owner.
Owner. Yeah.
How is that going to work? Because Alonso is not going to hold back. He never holds back. That's why it's Fernando
Yeah.
Alonso, and that's why F1 fans, love him because he will speak his mind. You always got to leave the space. So
Yeah.
and evidently, Lance Stroll didn't leave him any space when he sent him airborne in US. So
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
That is going to be interesting. What is your take on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you said, I can't imagine what the tension is going to be like. Hopefully they start the season on a good footing and it continues. And Lance Stroll, I don't know, maybe we can say Lance Stroll's going to learn, but he's been in F1 for so long now. I don't know what the learning period is, but it seems like he's very...
One of the best comments I saw was, has to be said, he put in some good performances this season.
Yeah.
In the car that was not good, he might say both, but like in the US, he qualified 7th, just behind the Mercs, the Ferraris, and the Red Bulls, which is crazy. In the Aston Martin, that was like the green tractor for most of the season.
Yeah.
And then he goes and does that in during the race where he completely cuts across Alonso, and then someone put a comment on YouTube. Lance Stroll is the paradox of F1. Sometimes he's Ayrton Senna, sometimes he's Nikita Mazepin.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be as smooth sailing as it was with Seb, because obviously we know what Fernando's character is. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting. But it'll be more interesting if they have a competitive car. But I don't think they're gonna have very competitive cars. They'll probably be at the back. So I think
Which is
maybe
bizarre. Why is
yeah,
Fernando going to Aston when Alpine clearly? But then I don't. But he's also been bad. I mean, he's had a history of not making the right decision with teams as well. And
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, Ferrari to McLaren and stuff like that. But I don't know. I I think he would have either seen something with because Aston Martin seem to be developing quite well in terms of their facilities and stuff like that. So
yeah, yeah,
he's probably seen something where they could potentially win a championship. But
yeah,
I don't think Seb would have left if it was something
yeah,
that could materialize in the next 2 years. So that means Fernando
yeah,
is hoping to continue for some time,
yeah,
at least
yeah,
into his 50s probably to win his because he wants to win the championship as well.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's interesting as to why he decided to go to Aston Martin and leave Alpine. Probably the Alpine relationship didn't work out or whatever.
yeah,
But
yeah.
Aston is interesting. And finally, I think we need to talk about the most interesting one. Suck my
Yes.
this click. Uh, but Kevin Magnussen, who
Then
had a legendary season, I should say.
yes,
I mean, that guy put Haas on pole. Bravo to
absolutely.
Haas. Bravo to him. And his good
Yeah.
old friend,
Nico
uh,
Hulkenberg.
Nico Hulkenberg. What is that
Yeah.
going to bring forward first?
Firstly, Nico Hulkenberg is back in F1. I mean, after like back in F1 permanently after
Yeah,
he seemed like the driver that everyone was just going to when someone was injured or sick.
yeah,
And
COVID.
yeah, and it was such a bold move, like to bring him in because I think I'm a big fan of him. I think he's a very consistent driver. Even when he was at Renault, he was very good. And for them to like, it was a huge surprise for them to not keep Mick Schumacher and to bring
Mick,
on
yeah,
Nico. Yeah, so I think clearly the team, they were probably very motivated by their improvement last season, and the car was like genuinely like insane in some races, right? Like we saw,
challenging
but
Merck.
yeah, challenging Merck and putting the car on pole. So I think obviously we know the relationship that K-Mag and Nico
Yeah,
have had, and it's not the best. So,
but
but I
apparently
think
they're patched. I mean, they've spoken quite a few times apparently, and
yeah,
everything's okay now.
yeah, exactly. I mean, they're both like veterans of the sport, so I think they would have patched it up. And I really think that Haas is going to be like a dark horse this season, especially in the midfield, because they have two very experienced drivers. Unlike some teams, like most of the other midfield teams are, I wouldn't say they don't have experienced drivers, but if you take McLaren has a rookie, and now obviously I don't think Aston is in that fight, but these two have two really good drivers, and K-Mag is going to build on a good season. So yeah, I'm very, very interested to see what Haas is going to do. And I don't think that it's going to be an issue between these two. I think they'll work well, and Haas is going to have a good season, I hope.
Yeah, and apparently Gunstein got the assurance from Binotto before he left that apparently the Ferrari engine is going to be a bomb in 2023, which is not a good thing actually. To see how the Ferrari engine has been in 2022,
Yeah,
because the thing has been
yeah,
literally exploding. So I don't know
yeah,
what that means. I mean, is he
yeah,
actually going to get a bomb? But who knows? Who knows? But
yeah,
yeah, really, I think this season is also going to be interesting. Remember, Red Bull have got the penalty for their cost cap breach, so it
yeah,
won't be smooth sailing for them. They lose wind tunnel time, simulation time.
yeah,
So that might even the playing field out. And Merck is going to come back hard. Ferrari, I mean, they had the engine lock as well, so Ferrari had a good engine. I mean, they had to
yeah,
like do a few developments, but still, the base engine was really good.
yeah,
So that whole penalty can bring the field close together. We never know, or
yeah,
they might just rock up with another rocket ship and
yeah.
win the championship again. But interesting season coming up ahead, I would say.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
we will see. We will see. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be an interesting season. I think purposely we didn't make predictions because,
It
as you
doesn't
know, once
matter
the season starts,
because
all the predictions.
if just look at last season, you take testing. If we just
Yeah,
took predictions after testing, McLaren and Ferrari are winning this championship. They were the
yeah,
fastest times. Where was
yeah,
McLaren? Where was Ferrari? I mean, Ferrari were
yeah,
challenging the championship. Where were
yeah,
Red Bull and where were Merck?
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. And then people saw Merck's side pod design and they were like, "Oh no, this
Oh,
feels like
the
yeah,
greatest, the greatest
yeah,
revelations.
the greatest revelation." But yeah, I mean, like even after Australia, people were like, Ferrari has won the title. This
Hmm.
season is over, and
Yes.
and it's done. But obviously, it's
By the
not
way,
yet.
Max turned out the biggest point deficit to win the championship, and he won with how many races to go, and he won it with.
Yeah,
He changed. It was 100 point difference in the end, from 46 points down to 146 points up. That is
yeah,
crazy.
it is.
Anyway.
It is. And I think, I think we can only hope for a competitive season this season, and hopefully there'll be more teams fighting for the top with the new regulations. But yeah, I think that brings us to the end of our first episode of 2023. Thank you everyone for listening in, and hopefully we can bring you more consistent content and more consistent F1 content going forward.
And more content is coming. I know that's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. We apologize for not having our most valuable member on this podcast.
The face of this podcast, but
face this podcast. But yeah,
Kavinka, the great Kavinka and exams is the greatest love story in the world. It's even better than Romeo and Juliet. So
yeah,
once he's done with that,
he'll be back hopefully. Yeah. But he has some stuff coming up. I think
he does.
Yeah, he does. So I guess y'all will see him. Maybe not. Maybe not on a podcast, but in a video, hopefully. But yeah, that's it from the GrandStand Podcast, and see you all soon.
Take care.